Welcome back to the American Experiment Podcast. Kathryn, what do we have on the docket today?
Today, we're covering the explosion of SNAP benefits under Governor Walz, the 90 violations found in a Hennepin County agency, and the nightmare-inducing puppet and dancing robot promoting the Blue Line boondoggle. Plus, our 4 not-so-esteemed Golden Turkey nominees with Bill Walsh, and then on the back half, an interview with our American Experiment founder, Mitch Pearlstein.
Let's dive in. Well, first, thank you to everyone who tuned in to our 100th episode special last week. We got so many nice comments. We loved reading them. Thank you so much, guys, for writing those in. We're still recovering here. Table's a little sticky from champagne.
Super sticky, although someone scraped most of the glitter out of the champagne that's kind of encrusted into this table. But yeah, definitely some residue still left there.
We had a good time. So thank you again to everyone who stuck with us for now 101 episodes. Very exciting.
Yeah, and thank you for coming back. We'll get back to serious business now, I'd say. Pretty serious episode, but sometimes you gotta have some fun.
As we mentioned in the little intro we do, our back half is with Mitch Pearlstein, who is our founder here at Center of the American Experiment. He has a book coming out, has just come out actually, Second Chance Hiring. And we have a very special event with him next week on Tuesday, November 18th at Interlochen in Edina. So if you don't have tickets for that yet, they are selling out so fast. You can go to americanexperiment.org/events to get yours. Should we dive into news?
Yeah, and just as a sign of growth for our podcast, I cut my finger really bad over the weekend, and I'm not even going to talk about it.
Okay, because I already heard about it.
I'm not going to talk about it. All right, you're welcome, everyone who thought it was gross the last time I suffered a horrible injury. Okay, so you're welcome. I'm going to keep it to myself.
Worse. Did you mention this was worse?
It was
you might have.
Much worse.
I can't hear it again.
That's all. I'm sorry.
The biggest story that we wanted to cover this week is John Phelan at americanexperiment.org did a deep dive into the growth of SNAP benefits since 2018 when Governor Walz took office as governor in Minnesota. SNAP benefits have exploded, basically, is the long and short of it. So SNAP, as you might know, stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. They used to be called food stamps. And it's the largest federal program aimed at combating hunger and food insecurity among low-income Americans. So this program is administered by the Department of Agriculture, and they issue an annual SNAP activity reports, which is what John Phelan is looking at here. Now, the most recent is from 2023, so all of these numbers are actually a couple years old by now. In 2018, SNAP issuance, which is the amount the federal government is sending to states to finance the program, totaled $660 million in Minnesota. This is 2018. By 2023, that had increased in real terms to $1.5 billion. This real terms increase of SNAP issuance in Minnesota is of 128%.
It's the biggest of all of the states, okay? Make more work for Isaac, maybe. Throw that chart up on the screen if you're watching. It shows all of the states. Some states even have fewer people on SNAP. A lot of them have, I would say a wide variety of growth, but Minnesota has by far the most growth in our SNAP program.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Governor Walz has made it clear in statements that he's given, interviews he's been a part of, saying that he sees this as a good thing. He sees this as, Minnesota is helping out more and more needy people who need our assistance. Which, yes, that's true. If there are people who are in need, giving aid, good thing. But it seems like he's overlooking the fact that more and more people under his administration are in that position financially to not be able to buy groceries without federal assistance. That's not a good thing. That's not something we should be celebrating.
Yes, exactly. No, not at all. And it's also, I just think it's indicative of him, in his idea that the more people on government, the better, when in reality, it's not good for people to be on these things long term. And in the context of everything we know going on in Minnesota with the explosion of fraud under Tim Walz, I don't have a ton of faith that the massive growth of this program is fully legitimate.
Yeah, and John Phelan breaks down, there's really 3 factors that go into the growth in these SNAP benefits. The total amount of the SNAP issuance can change because 1, the number of enrollees changes, so more people are on or off. 2, the amount which each enrollee receives changes, so are they getting more or less from the government? And 3, the administrative costs change. So in Minnesota, we had a double whammy. We had more people on the program, and they were also getting more. Each household was getting more money from the government than 5 years prior. Yeah. Our administrative costs actually went slightly down. So, little win for Minnesota. Take what we can get, I guess.
It's also interesting because I think a lot of this has been filled historically, the role of helping people in need, helping feed people. A lot of it is done by churches and private charities. This is something that Mitch mentions in our interview later about the role of churches in helping people in our community. And it has historically been very large and significant in Minnesota. And so one of the things Governor Walz is proud of is that he's doing more of that rather than the churches, which I think is not something necessarily to be proud of. But having said that, there's still lots of programs that do good work along these lines that are still very much active. So this doesn't even cover everyone that is in need or, all of the need that they have.
Yeah, it's going to be something to think about as we look ahead to 2026 when we're going to have so many, contentious elections. It's going to be a crazy cycle. What vision of Minnesota do you want to see? If you're a compassionate person, I think most Minnesotans are, you want to help the people around you who who have need. Do you want them helped by giving them more money from the federal government, or do you want them helped by no longer needing that money from the federal government? I think it's clearly, I would go with the latter personally.
Yeah, and it's also interesting when you think about the amount of money that's being given to programs. There are incredible programs in Minnesota that help feed people in need. And you look at how much money Minnesotans are giving to those, and it is increasing over time. Maybe I should look into this more for next week because it's always interested me. Do we have fewer resources? Is that why the government is stepping in more? But that's not what I've seen in the past. Minnesotans are very generous, and they give to good organizations that are helping people. Yet at the same time, the amount of government assistance is increasing and increasing significantly. So what does that say? I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah. You mentioned a minute ago mismanagement and the fraud that would maybe, incentivize Minnesota to not rely more on state and federal programs. Ties in kind of well with our next article.
Well, Bill Glahn wrote about an order issued in September that the State Department of Human Services, or DHS, cited the Hennepin County Medical Health Center for 90 separately itemized violations of more than 24 statutory requirements. So the county's medical health center is licensed like any other vendor that bills the state for services and is subject to review. So back in July, DHS performed a license and certification review of the center. Primarily, they looked into the center's substance use disorder treatment program. All told, there were 90 violations that failed to comply with dozens of state statutes. One example of these violations are the license holder did not have a procedure that will track and record client attendance at treatment activities, including duration and nature of each treatment services provided to the client.
If you're not tracking that, what are you even tracking?
What are you tracking? I don't understand. That seems fundamental. But it's just really interesting that the Hennepin County Mental Health Center, their own mental health center, has such an amazing number of violations of state law.
And it's messed up because when you think about Minnesota, which is it's such a heavily regulated state. There's so many hoops that, private citizens and businesses have to jump through just to be able to operate, as a business. Or, I mean, you think about like the over licensing we see for cosmetology or hair technicians or nail techs. It's just kind of insane. Childcare. Oh my gosh. And then you look at this where it's a government agency and they're just flagrantly disregarding the law and the licensing that they're supposed to follow. It makes you so mad. It's that rules for thee and not for me mentality.
Yes. No, that is such a good point. And in addition, think about that audit they just did of Governor Walz's own office and how they found so many problems of mismanagement, vendors not getting paid, these different things. Clearly, something about this administration is in disarray and it needs to be cleaned up. And this is how fraud happens, by the way, is that they're not following at the county level, the state level. They're not following the law. That's how things like fraud happen. And so to see that there was just so many violations in a county location is really crazy. And I hope they fix them up. But I also hope they do the same with all of the other departments in Governor Walz's administration.
Right. That's what worries me is what else is out there happening that we don't know about yet? What else is going to come out in the next few months? I think there was a time when we thought like the free food fraud was really bad. It was really embarrassing for our state, on a national level. But we can recover from it. It was a bad blip. It was during COVID. They weren't following the rules they were supposed to be. They weren't checking.
Yeah, it was
in person these locations
because it was COVID.
Right.
This would never happen if it wasn't a pandemic.
Right. And yet that was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the fraud and mismanagement that has happened in Minnesota over the last few years.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of mismanagement. Maybe not mismanagement.
Oh my God, just psychosis.
Misappropriation.
What? Insanity.
Tax dollars. There's a big promotion going on right now to fill the blue line trains that are running. This might be an early contender for the 2026 Golden Turkey. Matt Dean wrote at AmericanExperiment.org that Hennepin County is spending tax dollars on Giganta, the dancing robot, and Halima, I'm going to say Halima, the smiling puppet, as part of a $2.6 million public engagement effort to gather feedback from communities along the proposed Blue Line light rail extension, which will connect Minneapolis and Brooklyn Park. We're going to throw some photos on the screen of these creations.
The line doesn't even exist yet? They're just using these people to gather feedback?
They just want to hear how people feel about the line that may exist.
What is Giganta? Is it a guy in a costume? I need to see the picture. I haven't looked yet.
Alima is a life-size cloth puppet, which immediately you've lost me. Like, that's already nightmare fuel. That is so frightening.
Spooky AF.
With a cone-shaped basket for a face. It just gets worse. Honestly, every word. She asks passersby to gaze into her eyes and share what brings you joy.
Wait, what?
If you think I could stare into the lifeless eyes of a life-size cloth puppet and tell it what brings me joy.
That's so disturbing.
I don't know what to tell you.
Wait, who's funding this? The state? This is
a Hennepin County project. Now, it's a transit program, so the funding always gets a little weird because you get like the Met Council in there, and I think sometimes the state funds transit projects like this. This is a Hennepin County project. Giganta the dancing robot allows you to, quote, dance, groove, and get a glimpse into the future of the Blue Line light rail extension. Attendees at this promotional event they had got to take a photo with the robot mascot in a photo booth and provide feedback on the project.
What?
If you live in Hennepin County, my condolences. This is what, I'm sorry to say, your tax dollars are going to.
It's just such a salt in the wound, because first, all your money is going to be wasted on this project, another one of these empty transit bus things. And then also we're going to waste a bunch of money in collecting community feedback and trying to promote it with weird, creepy, life-sized puppet people.
They called it out of the box promotional techniques. Like, yeah, okay. This is out of the box. I'll give you that. No, you accomplished it. Gosh, and this is what happens, in all seriousness, this is what happens when you have a government that does not have any respect for the money it's taking from taxpayers. People are making sacrifices to keep their lives running. They're getting taxes taken out of their paycheck every week, every other week, whatever. And then they turn around and spend it on garbage like this. And there's just that mentality, I think, of people that say, the tax money's just kind of coming out of the air. It's coming from somewhere else. It's not coming from me. It's coming from the rich, or however they want to justify it.
Right.
It's you and me, and it's people who are living in Hennepin County who are paying for this.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good point. No respect for the hard-earned money of the people in their state, in their county. That is the theme of Minnesota lately, and it's sad. I feel like what we need is we need government to understand that they don't just get this money handed to them. They get what they should really need for their services. But then you see the Golden Turkey nominees, you see things like this, and you just lose faith in government, honestly.
Yeah, I want you to run police, run fire, run water, maybe help the people in our community who really can't help themselves.
Yep.
And that's it. I don't need dancing robots. I actually don't even need trains. Personally.
Not only
if there's
that,
a demand for them, sure, but no one's riding them. So please stop building them.
Not only that, I would pay not to have dancing robots on my streets, because that sounds creepy.
Yes. I never, ever want to see one of these anywhere within 10 feet of me. Don't bring them towards me. Oh my gosh. Well, should we kick things over to something still kind of silly?
So silly.
Gosh, it just gets sillier the more we go on, honestly.
The Golden Turkey, too, will you preface it? Because we didn't explain exactly what it is for anyone who's new to this campaign that we do here every year at American Experiment.
Yes, the Golden Turkey is American Experiment's annual award given out to wasteful, silly examples of spending in Minnesota by the government. We've been doing this since 2020. Some of our, esteemed winners winners have been, transit boondoggles. There was $1 million rest stop where buses didn't stop at.
The COVID morgue is a classic.
The COVID morgue where no bodies thankfully ended up, but it just sat empty for a few years. Of course, last year our winner was the new Minnesota state flag and seal, which cost tons of money to roll out across the state. And we're going to bring Bill Walsh in here in just a minute to take us through this year's nominees. If you want to vote, if you want to see past winners also, you can see all of that at goldenturkeymn.com. Should we snap Bill in?
Yeah, let's snap him in.
Boo.
Bill, welcome to the podcast. Our Golden Turkey Award expert. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's that time of year.
It is that time of year.
Thanksgiving's coming. We had snow this weekend. Must be Golden Turkey time.
Don't remind me. Yeah, there's a chill in the air, which means the Golden Turkey is upon us. You and Isaac.
Can I divert this conversation really quickly? I need to know the answer to something. Do I need to rake my leaves?
Oh, well,
I rent.
Yard care. Need to rake your leaves? Probably don't need to. Do you have a lawnmower? You could mulch them. You could.
No mower.
Well, how do you cut your grass? Do you have grass?
No, there's a guy comes and does it. I have a kid, a neighborhood kid. He's gone now though. He went to college, so I'm screwed.
Well, that's the first call. That kid should do your leaves maybe.
Okay, this is just one of those things I don't know. I've got a home. I don't know what to do with it. Do I really need to get rid of the leaves? Seems like a lot of work for what is the benefit? I don't know.
I think it kills the grass is the reason too.
Okay, leave a comment if you think I should rake my leaves or not. Anyway, sorry, the fall talk really just made me...
Oh, fall talk, okay.
Fall talk, yeah. And then whenever I have kind of like related questions, cars, things like that, I feel like Bill's a good person to ask.
Okay.
You have a lot of life advice. So.
Well, I used to own a house. I always rake the leaves.
An expert.
I did rake the leaves in the houses
data point.
My neighbors are like, not really. I tried to rake the leaves. Golden Turkey?
Golden Turkey.
Hey, can I say something about Golden Turkey? It's getting so good. It's our 5th or 6th year with Golden Turkey. It's getting so good that people see things in the news and immediately send us emails and say, this should be Golden Turkey. And so there was a really good piece on another transit boondoggle that KSDP TV or maybe Fox, I can't remember who did it. Really good piece on robots.
The robot and the puppet.
Yeah,
we talked about it in the front half of this episode.
Okay, good.
We just snapped you in so you didn't know that, but we actually covered that today.
Okay, because that really could have been a Golden Turkey nominee, but we already had our nominees set, and then that thing popped up. I'm like, hey, they're doing our work for us. But yeah, I thought that was fun. So, okay, that one's number 5. Should we do the other 4?
Yes.
You can write in that one if you want. Actually, there's no ability to write
don't say
in.
that. No, there's no write-in feature. Don't do that.
Program that into the system. That'd be great.
We're well on our way to, we've got thousands of votes already. Yep. You can submit yours at goldenturkeymn.com. We, of course, have 4 nominees. You and Isaac crisscrossed the Twin Cities
we did
last
some
week,
video.
getting some footage of each Golden Turkey site. Take us through the nominees, Bill.
Well,
the first is the Rum River Surfing project.
So
in Anoka?
surfing in Anoka, Minnesota is the dream. Okay, so the legislature had money. Actually, the legislature took money that was already slated for roads and streets in Anoka County and diverted it and said, no, spend it on a pedestrian bridge across the Rum River. The first piece of a $50 million surf park that's going to be there. And so this money's already been spent to get it going. You know how these projects go. A little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. This is the second expenditure now. We had a little planning money. Now we got the pedestrian bridge.
And then one day your Spirit Mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Every year we're giving money to a ski resort. So surfing on the Rum River, you can see the video. I mean, it's this little falls behind me. I mean, it's really the imagination it takes to say, where is the surfing going to be? I have a friend who grew up in California and is a surfer, a legit surfer. And he said, Bill, there's no surfing on the Rum River. That's going to be 5 minutes on the board, a little bit of current coming at you. And you went, okay, that was fun. And you're bored and you move on. But you read these plans and they're like, economic development, and there'll be shops selling wetsuits and surfboards, and then all the bars and restaurants will be vital down there in downtown Anoka. And it's nonsense. And there's only so many dollars in the economy. So you're just going to move them around if you build a surf park in Anoka. By the way, one last thing. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. What's the surf season in Minnesota?
Yes! Millions of dollars pumped into this for 3 months worth of
3 months.
activity?
I think 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
It's got to be cold for a lot of that, right? Maybe that's why you need the wetsuit. Has this worked anywhere else in Minnesota or Midwest? Are there big surf destinations in Wisconsin that I don't know about that we're trying to emulate?
No, we'd be cutting edge.
as we so often are here in Minnesota with our boondoggles.
Yes.
This is so weird.
So vote at Golden Turkey MN if you like Surf Park in Rum River, Anoka, Minnesota.
Second nominee, I think, is the $1 million City Hall bathroom. Tell us about that.
Yeah, City Hall, they got COVID money. All the cities got COVID money. It was, and I'm on a city council, and it's kind of like, what do we do with this money? It's one-time money, and you had to use it with a COVID-related use. So, like, I think in White Bear Lake, we did some work on our City Hall, like HVAC, like how the air circulates through the building. Because that's COVID, like, okay, this,
It's defensible.
it's the air moving around, can be a little safer and things like that. And we were kind of on the edge with that. Like, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? In Bloomington, they just remodeled a bathroom, and they didn't just remodel a bathroom. This is a $1 million bathroom, and we went out and looked at it. Isaac and I did, and they spent the money. It's very nice, and there's individual stalls. They're unisex, women and men. Just pick your stall, go in, and it's that community wash area, and the mirrors, and then there is a urinal room for the guys. So and it's beautiful, touchless door. You walk up to the door, it opens up. You go in. There's like 10 urinals in there. Then the door closes. You don't have to touch anything. Very cutting edge. There's these lights, red or green, whether the door's occupied or not. The
like
satellite,
at a parking room.
Yeah, like the satellite. You just flick the lever over and it's colored. But these are electric. Very, very beautiful lights. First class, $1 million, COVID money, bathroom, and inside City Hall, right inside the front door.
I'm laughing, but that makes me so mad.
It's the second ever bathroom on Golden Turkey, right?
We had a restroom. Yeah, we had a public restroom rest stop.
Second bathroom. I think they've just got this a little backwards because I don't so much care about like the niceness of my bathroom, but I do like the cleanliness. What if they just shifted that money to cleaning the bathrooms instead?
Yeah, COVID
Especially
related.
when you got these
keep things clean.
unisex ones, it's like disgusting.
It's a no from me.
Wave of the future. Cutting edge. We're cutting edge in surfing. We're cutting edge in bathrooms.
Well, our third nominee is Tim Walz's $430,000 legal bill that he used to prep for his congressional hearing, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was very nervous and very unprepared to go to Congress to give testimony to a congressional committee because that's the federal government. He's a state government guy. So it's very, it's like a foreign country. We got to get prepared. We better hire a lawyer. Wait a minute. He was in Congress for 12 years. Right. He sat on these committees. That's what you do when you're in Congress. You go to a committee and you sit there and they testify. Raise your right hand. Okay, your little nameplate. And you ask questions and there's a back and forth. You go through the chair, Mr. Chair, Congressman.
It was on his own policies in Minnesota.
Exactly.
His state, his own policies. One of the questions that they spent money on in this congressional prep was like, tell Governor Walz about the issues that Minnesotans care about. Oh my gosh, you have to pay prep for that? You're our governor. You've been our governor for years.
Yeah, $800 an hour attorney fees.
And not in Minnesota either, right?
No,
this is some.
They brought guys in. We got to bring them in.
National firm into the big guns.
Not even supporting our economy.
No.
They're way smarter than us. We got to bring them in from another country, another state, So
people consistently nominate Tim Walz to win a Golden Turkey, and it can't be a person winning it. It's a project. Something the state is spending money on. But if you're one of those people who emails us every year and says Tim Walz should be the nominee, you can vote for him by proxy with his $430,000, legal bill.
Yeah.
Fourth nominee, final nominee, is yet another empty bus, one of our favorite themes for the Golden Turkey here at American Experiment.
And again, I think it was KSTP TV beat us to it. Earlier this summer, they ran a piece once this new line, the Gold Line from St. Paul downtown to Woodbury.
There's too many colors. I can't keep track.
Yeah,
but okay.
They named my Gold Line. It opened, a few months ago, and KSTP waited a month or so and then went out and wrote it a lot, like for 30 days, or they wrote it a lot. They got data. And they put out this kind of damning report on how no one is riding the bus. And in their piece, they said that there's a stop at 3M headquarters. And I'm sure these urban planners and sit in their desk go, wow, there's so many employees that come to work at 3M. This percentage of them are going to ride the bus now. They're going to leave their car home and they're going to take the bus. So we're going to have this many riders at that stop. The KSTP piece said that no one was ever in there all their time. They were on the bus. No one ever picked up at 3M, and the bus drivers didn't even stop there. Sometimes they just rolled right through the stop. So it's at 25% of their proposed ridership, what they thought it would be. You know, these things are funded by federal and state money. They're funded based on ridership projections. So they just got it wrong again. They always think Minnesotans are going to leave their cars home and get on the bus and take the bus. And
why would I get in my car to go to a bus stop and not just get in my car and go to the place I'm trying to go? I'm sorry, I don't get it. I do not get how this works. They think this is going to work in suburbs. I'm like, no, I'm already getting in my car and going somewhere. I don't get it.
This is not Europe where everyone lives within like walking distance of a transit stop already.
That's the key. You just nailed the key. The Twin Cities, when it was built, years ago, it was built out and we planned our community. There's no natural land mass like a mountain range, or we have rivers, but the rivers go right through the center of the cities. So there's just that we spread out. And right or wrong, we made a decision 60 years ago. When they built Highway 100, the first highway in the system, we spread this Twin Cities out, and that's fatal for mass transit dreams of these urban planners. We're going to get in our car. We're going to have to get in our car to get to the bus stop probably. And now the answer to that is density. We're going to build high density places, transit oriented development near the bus stops. That's what they're trying to reverse engineer, which they've been somewhat successful at that. But that's like forcing it and forcing Minnesotans who have not been trained. You have to be trained to ride the bus and kind of embrace transit. And we're not. We like our cars.
It also helps when they have the police looking at the buses so that there are fewer people smoking crack.
Yeah, they look. We can do a whole show on buses, rolling homeless shelters.
Just a suggestion.
It's
making sure people pay their fares to get on. Yeah. That seems like a good idea.
Find the video of that Isaac did on the Gold Line, because there's this great shot of the golden turkey riding the bus and he's looking out the window and the scenery's going by. I think it's great photography.
We'll roll it for those of you watching on YouTube. Right
I
now.
just love it, and we didn't have time to get the rights to any songs, but we wanted to put all by myself. That would have been awesome.
Should have done you singing. Oh, that was
good. Wow.
Behind the golden turkey. My only criticism of Isaac is he never leaves the bit up long enough. So you're going to want more of the golden turkey riding the bus. Maybe you're not. Maybe it's just me.
Bill, are you going to divulge to our viewers which golden turkey you have voted for?
I voted for the bus. I think these transit projects are nuts. Bus is not winning, though. Do we want to hint that who's winning?
I'm not going to hint.
You're not going to. Okay.
No, because last year in 2024, it was like really close up until the 11th hour, and then one nominee won in like a landslide. And so I don't think I'm going to say which one is leading right now, because these things can change up pretty quickly.
We want to increase voter turnout. We will
also
say
that,
we do have an announcement though. This is not a ranked choice voting situation. So there's one vote per person, and the winner gets the votes for most wins. No ranked choice voting in the golden turkey.
No second choices, no third choices.
None of that stuff.
One choice. Good old-fashioned American voting.
Although there's no right in. I usually, if I don't know, like it's like a water and soil commissioner or something that sounds kind of boring, I fill it in and then I put someone I know. Often my dad, John Hinderrocker.
Somebody's going to win. He's going to be so mad.
I know. If only.
Bill, thank you so much for getting snapped in here today. We're going to kick things over to me and Kathryn now, talking with Mitch Pearlstein about his new book and upcoming event with us. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
American Experiment is supported by thousands of individuals like you. To join the movement, go to www.americanexperiment.org and click the yellow donate button. From all of us here, thank you. We are so happy to be joined in studio now by Mitch Pearlstein, who has a new book coming out, but who more famously is the founder of Center of the American Experiment. Thank you so much for coming on, Mitch.
Thank you. And being involved in starting this place with good friends is one of the proud things I've ever done.
Well, we're proud to benefit from it in so many ways. Not just us, but our listeners and our viewers. So thank you, Mitch.
You're welcome.
You have this new book, Second Chance Hiring. I think the first thing I'd like to hear from you is kind of just an overview. What's this book about and what's your core argument in it?
The core argument is that we need to do a better job in this society in helping guys coming out of prison, and women too, get on with their lives, more specifically getting jobs, which, as you know, is very difficult. And it's animated in part by we have come out of the George Floyd years with a lot of people talking about a greater interest in social justice. But I haven't gotten the sense that that has stretched down to helping people coming out of prison get jobs, which is important, it's doable, it's difficult. And I'm hitting it from an economic perspective. Why is it important economically? And why is it compelling ethically as well?
That was one of the first questions I had when I heard about the topic was, you've written so much in the past about family and cultural issues, family fragmentation, fatherhood. So it sounds like it was really the George Floyd era call for social justice that pushed you to look kind of in the post-incarceration area for a book?
In part, George Floyd, that horrible episode, certainly has played a role, but frankly, a bigger role. I'm on the board of directors of a reentry organization called the Redemption Project. I've been on that now, I guess, about 5 years. And my colleagues suggested that perhaps I should do a book. And I was looking for a book, and I started writing it, and whammo, 3 years later, it's done.
Talk about the social justice aspect a little bit, if you will, because I think when some people hear social justice, or I frankly hear social justice, I think, oh, liberals, probably something I'm not going to like. Why is this a conservative issue?
Good question. And I understand the connotations of social justice. Perhaps I should say something like fairness, though I get beaten up for that one as well. 95% of the people in prison will eventually come out. And it serves nobody's interest to have them not do well, to risk their doing criminal things again, to risk their going back to prison, and very large proportions of people leaving prison do wind up there again. And it just seems to me the human thing to do. I worked for Alqui when he was governor, and I suspect for younger people, they have no idea who I am talking about. Alqui was governor of Minnesota from late 70s to early 80s. And he had been in Congress for 20 years prior to that. A Republican, I was his speechwriter. And he was such a good man. And he spent about 40 years or more in prisons, talking to people, helping them. He was great friends with Chuck Colson. They became friends during Watergate, actually. And I've always been inspired by what the governor did. He died, by the way, 2 years ago, 1 month short of his 100th birthday. Oh. He was simply the best person I ever knew. And I'm his biographer. I did that about 15 years ago. And helping people in those kinds of situations, helping them help themselves, was so central to his life. And I can take it a bit further. My wife is the Reverend McGowan. She's an Episcopal deacon. And she does good things. So I figured I should do good things too. Yeah. It's
interesting that you approach it from, the economic and ethical standpoint. Especially when you think about, we're hosting an event next week. American Experiment is November 18th. You can still get tickets at americanexperiment.org/events.
Thank you.
I got to plug that. But when you think about, as you were saying, Kathryn, sort of framing this issue for conservatives and making the point that there's a humanitarian, there's an ethical, there's even a religious argument to be made for second chance hiring. We'll get into that a little bit later. But from the economic standpoint, just give me the high points of your book. What is the economic argument?
We need people working.
And hard stop.
We need more people working. The economy needs it. I finished the draft about 11 months ago and sent it into the publisher, Bloomsbury. And at that point, we were still talking about there were more vacant jobs in this country than people looking for work. And then, son of a gun, in the recent weeks, that has changed. But the fundamentals are still there. We need people working to build this economy. We are not making enough babies in this country. Our replacement rate is, last I saw, 1.67, meaning if we're going to have more workers as we need them, many of them will be immigrants, and we can talk about immigration, legal immigration. But this is also a great opportunity for people who have records, who are prepared to work, who are equipped to work, who want to work, for them to work.
It seems like a big element is, focusing individual employers to adopt this policy. But do you think there's room or a need for the government to enact policies to maybe incentivize employers to take this on?
I'm not big on that. There are some incentives. There's also an incentive if you hire a person who's been in prison, you don't really have to worry about that person then committing a crime. There are protections for that. I'm always of the mind, let's do something with the smallest governmental footprint as possible. There are some tax advantages of hiring people, but the kinds of programs I'm talking about, and here's a connection between things conservative perhaps and theological. Who are some of the most active people involved in helping people who are in prison? Religiously animated men and women who tend to be more conservative. So helping these guys who are trying to redeem their lives, whatever one may think of the term social justice, and I will not use it again for the rest of the half hour, this is the right thing to do.
How would you frame the kind of ethical, moral aspect of this argument for second chance hiring to someone who is not religious?
Yeah, I was thinking about, you make such a good argument for, on biblical grounds, of course, we're called to forgive. But what about, someone who's not religious? And maybe I think about Erica Kirk. I don't know if you saw this, but she publicly forgave the killer, the murderer of her husband.
Right.
I'm personally religious, and I found that jarring and incredible in a lot of ways, but so difficult. And I don't even know if I would be there with her. I would say, do your time, and then we'll talk about forgiveness.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who have a hard time with the concept of forgiveness because they're not religious?
I think the idea of forgiveness in this society is separable from a person having faith. It's part of the American creed. I'm in an interesting situation. I'm Jewish. My wife is Episcopal clergy. It's more complicated than that, even. But I've said in the past, when making arguments along the lines that someone might view as religious when it comes to the culture out of wedlock, babies and all, the kind of theology, overstating the word, or understating the word I'm looking for, is what's in a good, basic, fundamental Sunday sermon. It's part of the creed. It's not sectarian. If someone is put off by that, I'm sorry.
Well, I think how I was thinking about it is sometimes I feel like forgiveness gets in the way of justice for the victim. Do you think that that's ever the case when we talk about second chance hiring, or are the concepts of forgiveness and justice completely separate?
It's all part of a package. It would be a very good idea for a person coming out of prison or while still in prison to prepare for the new life, to come to grips with what he or she has done, and to seek forgiveness and to have earned redemption. I have a friend who, for a long time, ran a reentry program in Minneapolis, and who had spent some time in prison as a younger guy. And I was moderating a panel. I guess this is an indication I've been interested in the subject for a long time. A good dozen years ago at American Experiment, I moderated a panel about forgiveness, about people coming out of prison and helping them get on with their lives. And my friends said, some people think if you're forgiving in a responsible way and you're conducting these programs, that what you're really doing is hugging a thug. And he said, no, it's a public safety matter. It doesn't do anybody any good if these guys come out and they're adrift completely and they can't get a job. So many of them wind up back in prison anyway, not necessarily for committing more crimes, but for violating parole and drinking when they're not supposed to drink. And they're not necessarily going to spend a lot more time in prison. But it is the right thing to do in every religion. And I cite that. Every religion talks about redemption, talks about forgiveness. Of course, you have to do it in a responsible way.
So you, if I'm hearing you right, you see this, yes, as, the right thing to do for the individual in terms of forgiveness and rebuilding that trust in the person, but also part of that rehabilitation, there is like a societal greater interest in welcoming these people in a responsible way, like you say, back into the workforce.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the individual, again, the organization I mentioned a moment ago, the Redemption Project, what we feature more than any other reentry program that I know are the cardinal virtues, wisdom, prudence, temperance. And these guys, while still in prison, are taking courses, at least one 12, 14-week course on these fundamental ideas. And many of them are hearing these good things for the first time. So it's not as if a person is in prison, comes out, hasn't been rehabilitated in some fashion, and we should shower them with good deeds. Let us hope that they have turned their lives around as much as possible under the circumstances.
The objection that you really tackle head on in the book and are very open about is probably the most common one. The worry that offenders, thinking of the high recidivism rates, is that what it recidivism?
Yeah.
Rates we see, thinking that if you put them in a situation with customers, with your fellow employees, employers might be nervous about them committing another crime or being, in some way unreliable as employees. How did you address that?
In several ways. Here's where my involvement with a conservative think tank comes into play. I talk a lot about crime. Yes, some people might commit more crime, no question about that. But the context of what we're talking about, there's a lot of crime in this country. I did the math, simple division, and something like 12,000 plus violent crimes in the United States every day.
Oh, gosh.
And this scares people understandably. And it's in this context that some people might not be really eager to offer a hand.
Mm-hmm.
And add to that, again, I'm really quite direct. I don't necessarily have warm fuzzies for a lot of these guys. My wife likes watching these prison shows. I don't like watching these prison shows.
I also love them.
Well,
Lock Up, all those ones, I love them.
And that is fine and dandy, and now I understand why they're
I think
on all
I'm
the
an
time.
expert because
Yeah.
I watch these shows. Are you telling me I'm wrong, Mitch?
No. See, where I come out, look, by all means, First Amendment, let's have the shows. But I don't feel really generous necessarily, warm fuzzies, as I say. But the smart position to take is to help, as long as they're helping themselves, of course. If I haven't emphasized that enough, it's ultimately the person coming out of prison who has the responsibility to get their lives right, to do the right thing, to get trained and so forth. So it's, again, in society's best interest to make certain that they're not going to be terribly tempted to do crime again. But of course, many of them do wind up back in prison. And in part, they wind up back in prison because they have come out, they have tried real hard to get a job, and they're having overwhelming difficulty. And it's a little too tempting sometimes to commit another crime. I interviewed one guy who, from a professional background, he was in federal prison, I think, a white-collar crime. And he came out, he simply couldn't get his life back in order. His wife divorced him, the whole package. And he said during the interview that he thought about going into a bank, handing a note to a teller saying this is a stick-up, not doing the stick-up, just sitting down and waiting for the police to arrive. And I said, "You're being facetious, aren't you?" And he said, "No. For all the bad things about prison, in some ways it makes your life easier than having to contend with reality on the outside." So let's just say it's a very human situation.
Do you have the sense that the United States is unique in its handling of incarceration and rehabilitation compared with other countries?
Turning it around, other countries would claim to be, in many ways are, and I don't like the term again, necessarily progressive. Other countries with far smaller populations and far smaller numbers of people doing terrible things are in a better position to be nicer, let's say. But yeah, in some ways, here's an interesting point. In some ways, we are tougher. In other ways, we are the exact opposite. I read Thinking Minnesota. I read Dave Zimmer about what's going on in Hennepin County. So you can find whatever you're looking for. But there are some programs in other countries where, in Norway, for example, they're real good. Offenders, while they're in prison, get to wear their own clothes, cook their own food. In Singapore, there's this program when guys are getting out of prison, they are greeted when they come out by Singaporeans who have already been in prison, pledging their help to help these guys get on with their lives again. And it's a lovely thought.
That's amazing.
Criminologists and the like around the world view the United States as generally overly harsh.
But Mitch, you're an expert in things like social capital and the ways that societies and different communities can almost self-police in a lot of ways. And I think of Norway and I think of Singapore as good examples of those. They have these really strong cultural sort of, I don't know if you'd call them norms or the culture
solidarity,
and the community.
Community. And why don't we have that in the United States?
Yeah, why don't we have that in the US?
I'll give you one real quick answer. The extraordinary proportion of kids born out of wedlock in this country. I've been focusing on that topic for decades. And it is central. It's central to our educational bad performance. It's central to crime, central to the loss of community. Other countries, when other countries, this is not exactly a general rule, when out of wedlock birth rates are high, as they often are, the couples remain together. They're not married, but they're together. In the United States, couples who have babies and are not married, and they tend to stay together for a little bit, but not that long. So kids are growing up in single-parent families to an overwhelming degree. And I've written a couple of books saying this is not a good thing.
Okay, you mentioned immigration earlier, so I would be remiss if I did not circle back a little bit, because one of the points you make in the book that I thought was very interesting when you're making the economic argument for second chance hiring is that we need people to fill these roles when we have a replacement rate that's not, recovering. Like you said, it's at 1.6% or something.
1.67. My latest count, 1.67.
And you mentioned in China where they had the was it 2-kid rule or was it 1 kid?
1 kid. They're working their way out of that.
And how much their economy was impacted by that negatively. Is that an argument you think, because we're at that lower replacement rate, is that an argument you think for more legal immigration?
Yes.
Because we just need people to take those jobs, or we will see the side effects in our economy.
As it is with the law as written at least a couple of years ago. An extraordinary proportion of the growth in the workforce over the next 30 years will be either by legal immigrants, and I'm just talking about legal immigration, or their children. So we need those people. Others have made the argument better than I about how a nation that is not economically growing is by definition stagnating. pessimism rises. We need people. And historically, we have been a nation, not consistently, that has been big on legal immigration. And we seem to be losing some of that now. And if there is one message in the book, and I would hope there's more than one message in the book, it's that we have to resurrect interest, support for legal immigration.
Well, and this would be a very tough conversation for Elon Musk to hear, because on one hand, he is trying to repopulate the country. On the other hand, I think he has kids with like 7 or 8 different women. So he'd really be torn.
Who does he think he is, an NBA star? Come on.
Well, Mitch, while we still have you here, for our viewers who are seeing you for the first time, would you quickly tell the story of founding American Experiment back in 1990 and maybe touch on where our name came from?
Such a good
Well,
Because we get that question all the time.
Yeah. Well, I would be disappointed if you did not ask that question, because one of the proud things, as I think I said earlier on, is American Experiment. I came out here from upstate New York, Binghamton, New York, in 1974 to work at the university. I was a speechwriter for the then new president, Peter McGraw. And from there, it was overlapping. I finished my doctorate in educational administration with a focus on higher ed, meaning I couldn't get a job right away. But then I did wind up as an editorial writer for the Pioneer Press, but it was time to leave there. And I had always wanted to do a Washington stint. And I had a very good friend, who's still a very good friend, Chester E. Finn Jr., Checker Finn, one of the country's great education scholars still. He was at the late, great U.S. Department of Education, and my phone is ringing, so forget about it. And I said, I want to go to Washington. I had spent 4 years at the Pioneer Press. It was time to move on. And he said he had something. Short answer, I wound up getting the offer, so I went to D.C. as the spokesperson. Oh, you'll like this D.C. story. I went there as the spokesperson for the research arm of the U.S. Department of Education, and I got there and found out there was a woman already there who viewed herself as the spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education. So that assignment began just great. And somewhere along the way, really quite early on, in 97, I said, I want to go back to Minnesota. Minnesota was deeply home by that stage. And I had a background in education, I had a background in journalism, I had a background in government. When I was with Al Quie, I had learned something about think tanks because the late great Heritage Foundation would send me stuff. I said, I want to start a conservative think tank in Minnesota. And you can only imagine how people looked at me very strangely. And implicitly it was, you want to start a what, where? I said, yeah, the liberalism in Minnesota is not like the Upper West Side of Manhattan or Los Angeles. And I was confident people wanted to read the kinds of things I wanted to read and the like. So I started talking about this. And I remember Dave Durnberg, the senator, I kept on mentioning it to him. He said, you got to write something. You got to write a prospectus. So I wrote a prospectus. And that's when I recruited Kathy Kirsten and Peter Bell and Ron Ebensteiner and Mark Larson. And did I say Kathy Kirsten? Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can say her twice. She's pretty
put
great.
Kathy down twice. I'm leaving somebody out. I'm sorry. I'm leaving somebody out, I think. And I didn't know how difficult it was to start a nonprofit, just to get incorporated. Mm. So remember, I started this in 97, and we weren't able to open to 90. Another day, I'll tell you how we came up with that original money. Perfectly legal, by the way. It was good. Just really hard finding donors to do that. But we finally reached the stage where we could open up, and we needed a name. All right, quickly. I came up with a name, something like, something to do with the prairie or something rather. And I thought it was a great name until someone told me, no, that's already been taken by a group in Chicago. So I had to come up with a new name. I was at a meeting of the, sounds good, National Governors Association in Cincinnati, and I had to come up with a name By the next day, we were filing papers. And I said I wasn't going to stop walking around until I got a name. So I was walking all the way around Cincinnati, all the sports stadia and all. And finally it came to me outside of Procter & Gamble, center of the American experiment, which I liked for hundreds of reasons. So we had a name, and then it was just a matter of getting enough money. We hadn't raised the money yet to get started. And this is not at the risk of name dropping. I'm happy to do this. Our very first program was an all-day conference on the new war on poverty, advancing forward this time. Peter Bell's idea. I may have let Peter Bell out a moment ago. And he thought we were getting ready to fight a new war on poverty, and we were going to mess it up like we did the last one. So I put together this prospectus, and I had become friends in a fashion, Charles Murray, Linda Chavez Checker, Finn, and other significant players in the conservative side of social welfare policy, education policy, and all. And I said, we're doing this conference. We're going to juxtapose you with the smartest progressives. So the word was liberal at the time in Minnesota. We were going to have a fine old day. And they all agreed to come out. And I said, I can't pay. We can pay expenses. I can't pay any honorarium. And they all came out. I later learned that they were talking amongst themselves and never thought we were going to be able to pull it off. So they agreed to come. But they came out, and we had this remarkable day-long conference. And Bill Raspberry, who was a friend, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post, wrote a column about this magnificent day, April 4th, 1990. And I was under the impression every time we did anything, we would have a syndicated column by a big-time Washington journalist. Didn't exactly work that way. But that was the start. And we surprised people right out of the gate that we were taking on a tough subject. We were doing it responsibly. We were combining on the same stage the smartest liberals in town with the smartest conservatives I was bringing in. And we've been off and running for 35 years since then, and come January, will be 36.
Well, we're very proud of that history and proud of that founding.
I am exceedingly proud, and if I went on too long, my apologies, but I have no apologies to make.
You're on the American Experiment podcast. You can't go on too long.
Oh,
That's
good.
so true.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that story and reflecting on how the impact American Experiment has made over the last 35
Thank
years.
you.
And today there's practically a conservative think tank like ours in every state, but not many have been around as long as we have and have had the impact.
There is
we have.
one, as the last time I checked, there was one, at least one in every state. We were, I think, about number 15 getting started back then. If you were to ask the one best moment of the entire time I was at the center, we had Margaret Thatcher for an annual dinner.
So cool.
Someone suggested we get Margaret Thatcher. And I said, you're out of your mind. How are we going to do that? But we got Margaret Thatcher. And Kathy Kirsten was the chair at the time. And we made an arrangement. I would ride back from the airport with Lady Thatcher, and Kathy would sit with her on the dais. We did a dais during dinner. So I rode back from the airport, home and feel in a daze and everything. And at the start of the program, here's the single greatest moment. We were singing the two national anthems. We had 2,170 people. No, it was 2,500 because we were in the indoor football stadium at the university because everything else was closed to us, the convention center and all. It was about 2,500 people. And I'm up there singing the two national anthems with Lady Thatcher. And I'm saying to myself, and I may have used a dirty word, son of a gun, we done good. That was great. All right, so we used to do the speech, the keynote before dinner. Long story for that, another day. And she had to leave right after she ate, but before I spoke, because she was speaking at a commencement, I think at William and Mary, and had to fly out. So at the appropriate moment, I was to walk over to her and Kathy and say, Lady Thatcher, I'm afraid you have to catch a plane. You're out of here. All right. And she looked up at me, and the two of them had been having, I think, a couple of glasses of wine. And she looked up and she said, oh, must I? I'm having such a good time. I said, yeah, you got to go. So, and she wasn't just this icon. She was a politician. So she gets up. Norm Coleman, I believe, was the MC that night.
Oh my gosh.
And he announces that Lady Thatcher has to leave. And she goes to the front of the dais. And I was afraid she was going to fall down. And she gives this big wave. She was a politician, this great wave. And she went backstage and took photos with the entire staff, which gave me the fact that she left. I'll end it this way because I can't end it any better. I get up there and I say, I hope you people take this in the right way. But this is not the first time a lady has left before I've had a chance to say anything. And it worked. The line worked. And my wife wasn't mad at me or anything like that. So that's part of the history of our beloved center.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mitch. I think my mom was pregnant with me when they were at that event, if I remember correctly. And now I'm here on the American Experiment podcast. So everything's full circle. Well, tell our listeners and our viewers, where can they get your book, Second Chance Hiring?
Always easiest, Amazon. I don't think Bloomsbury, the publisher, was going to be happy that I said that. But in terms of bookstores, I've never had success having books in bookstores. But the easiest thing, just go to Amazon, go to books, stick in my name, and about 4 of them will show up, 5 of them, and this is the most recent.
Sure. And also remember to get your tickets for our event next Tuesday, November 18th at Interlochen Country Club in Edina. Mitch, you're going to be on this incredible, you're going to, I think, have a panel there of people who were formerly incarcerated.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that.
It is going to be a really amazing event. This is not one you want to miss. It's a lunch event, I think 11:30 to 1, and there are a handful of spots remaining. I mean, it is a full room. So if you want to be there, get your tickets now. Mitch, thank you again so much for coming on.
Thank you both. Wonderful.
Thanks, you guys, for making it all the way to the end of this episode of the American Experiment podcast. And thank you again for all of the lovely comments you left on our episode last week. We read every single one, and we love hearing from you guys.
I loved this one. We got from ZB, I'm going to call him. Asked to quote Phil from John Justice, "It is nice to see these two broads work. My first episode, but not my last. Great job." Thank you so much. And if you don't know that reference, you should also listen to the John Justice podcast on Fridays in particular when we are on. So thank you so much for listening. One more fellow Minnesotan here, just heard of your podcast today, enjoying your content so far, subscribed, and congrats on your 100th episode. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
We do have a question for you this week. Have you, let us know in the comments, seen our new wind and solar video? We're promoting it on YouTube. We're almost at 1 million views.
It's so good. Go play it on your devices, like at the same time, if you're bored.
Really help us game the system.
Yeah, rack up a couple of views here and there. But no, really, it's doing great, and it's reaching a different audience than our stuff often does. We can tell. So it's great to see that. Hopefully we're changing hearts and minds like our goal is.
Yeah, so if you've gotten served that ad, let us know in the comments. If you just happen to see it, was it recommended to you? Let us know. I'd love to hear. And continue to send us guest ideas. We got a couple really good suggestions on last week's episode. I think we have a really good lineup coming in the next few weeks. But we like to, hear your guys' feedback and hopefully bring in people that you are excited to hear from. One last note, our Christmas party is on Thursday, December 4th. Tickets are available at americanexperiment.org/events. It's called a Christmas party, but it's the holidays. It's New Year's. It's whatever you celebrate if you're not Christian or if you're not religious at all. So come hang out with us.
Come celebrate anything. It's a banging party. I mean, seriously, it's like the best party we do all year, I think. Yeah. It's my favorite. It's so fun. There are games, raffle. You'll get tons of food. Tons of fun. You'll love it, I promise. And come say hi to us, because we'll be there.
And as always, remember to like, share, comment, turn on notifications, subscribe, do all the things to help us reach more people. We'll see you next week.